kids, they're programmed to just think negatively. And it's a protective mechanism that our brain does. It's one of those things our brain does to try to protect us from harm, but it's often doing it unnecessarily.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the OpenEd podcast. I'm Charlie Deist, here today with Joey Mascio of Sidekick to Hero. Joey, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's a beautiful day.
It looks like it back there, and likewise where I am. So we're just gonna, channel that outdoor weather into our indoor conversation. But there's a lot that I wanted to talk about with you ever since first seeing your booth at the Utah Fits All vendor fair back in, when was that? I think June. And you were conspicuously absent, but you had some very, very nice help there who were handing out flyers, and it caught my eye. I think there was a little sticker giveaway or something. I grabbed one for my daughter. She loved that. She's maybe not old enough yet for something like Sidekick to Hero, but this is kind of an exciting time to be pursuing what we're calling an open education. It's a little bit broader than the traditional categories of homeschool. People are finding that today, whether you're in Utah and you have access to programs like OpenEd, Utah Fits All, there's all these opportunities to kind of customize, mix and match different curriculums, find what works for your child. I want to kind of jump off by giving you a chance to talk a little bit about what you're doing with Sidekick to Hero, just the sort of the structure of the program and how you see it fitting into the broader ecosystem of what's happening in education today.
Yeah, definitely. I was remiss to not be at that convention. I mean, I do like to be mysterious, right? Be a man of mystery. But that weekend I was down at the GHC convention in California. And what I noticed at these conventions is something I noticed when I was a middle school teacher. So I was a middle school teacher for 7 years. Halfway through my stint as an English and theater teacher, I volunteered to be the teacher in the discipline office. And this was in Southern California. And I realized that in the discipline office, I was running into a lot of teens, both, the troubled teens, as you might call them, but also just kind of the Gen Pop, that would make their way in there for various reasons. And one of the things that was missed, that was missing from their education, was on how to use their brain. Right? On how their brain is affecting them, how our brain sometimes plays tricks on us, and how it does things that get us further away from our goals. And it would get these kids to end up in the discipline office for various reasons, but it also causes teens and adults everywhere to do things like procrastinate, to self-doubt, to do all those things. And it hit me during that time that there is no education, no class, no curriculum really that teaches self-development, resilience, anything like that. We find this stuff as adults. We find these books and we love them, and we always say the same thing. Any adult I talk to, they say, I wish I knew this when I was a teen. Right?
Yep. No, and I think it was actually the little postcard you were giving out that caught my eye with the cover of Deep Work by Cal Newport, Atomic Habits by he's got the perfect name for what he did, James Clear.
James Clear, yep.
Right. One of those guys who must have been, named before. His name turned out to be prophetic because his whole thing is about, you don't lack motivation, you lack clarity. And
right.
And these are things that, if I had learned these as a kid, it could have saved me so many frustrated hours. And, you've got a whole list of books on your website, but I'm curious how you break these down. Do you need to do like the Cliff Notes version for teenagers? Or I imagine that past a certain age, you can just read the source material directly, but how do you actually approach these sort of the hidden curriculum or the real world skills that are absent in the traditional school model?
Oh yeah. So when teaching concepts from these books, because that's what I do in my curriculum in Sidekick to Hero, I teach them from these books and other, self-development gurus. Here's the thing about these books. They are way longer than they need to be. And they could really be pamphlets. A lot of these can be pamphlets. Now, it's really good to go and like have stories and whatnot, like especially in Atomic Habits, like each chapter starts with a story. You go, oh, cool. And the stories are great, but the concepts are what the teens need at this point. And they need them a lot quicker, and they need them in video format with a lot of humor. And that's what I do. Like my background is theater. I was the only actor in Disney history because I was a Disneyland performer for 9 years. I was the only actor in Disney history to have played both Darth Maul and the Mad Hatter. So brag.
Whoa, I got to stop you there, because when were you at Disneyland? I got to know if maybe our paths crossed. Maybe I got a photo with you at one point.
Maybe it was 2002 to 2000. And no, it was 2001, 2009.
Wow. So right in the grips of sort of Phantom Menace mania, I have a confession, which is that I saw the Star Wars Episode 1 7 times in theaters when it came out. It was 7 times. And I grew up in the area where George Lucas had his studio, and he put money out to all the theaters to retrofit their sound systems so that they would have the THX sound experience. And there was one theater in particular that I lived right by where you really kind of decked it out. And so there was so much energy. I felt like I was at kind of the hub of that. And that was also around the time that I was going to Disneyland. So who knows, maybe our paths crossed.
I got to ask you, Charlie, when you went to the movie any of those 7 times, did you have the Anakin braid?
No, I did not. I didn't, never grew out my hair, never had the rat tail, but maybe it's not too late.
Not too late, man. Not too late. So look, with my background as an actor, I'm a professional improv comedian. I've been doing that for over 20 years. So I make short videos that are fun and engaging and that teach teens these important skills. And they're simple, really, when it comes down to it. Like, I literally just got off the phone with my wife. She's coming back from our homeschool co-op that she takes the kids to. And we give everybody in the homeschool co-op just free access to Sidekick to Hero. And a new mom this year just told my wife, and she was like, I noticed a difference after the first 2 videos my kids watched. Like, there's a big difference in their attitude and their confidence. And I'm like, yeah, because it doesn't take much to introduce something. Like, I use humor to open up their brain, and then I put in a new way of thinking that we all should be thinking, right? You know, because like kids, they're programmed to just think negatively, and it's a protective mechanism that our brain does. It's one of those things our brain does to try to protect us from harm, but it's often doing it unnecessarily. And so if you just introduce some of these concepts in a way where the kids are like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I use humor and stories and metaphors. They go, oh, well, I don't have to think that way anymore. That's great. I don't have to believe maybe what other people say about me, or I don't have to believe that me looking different is bad. Me looking different could be awesome. Oh, I never considered that before. And then they start experiencing this change.
Right. You know, I think you mentioned you don't need to read the whole books in most cases. I was writing about Atomic Habits before I'd ever read the whole book. I don't even know if I've still read the whole book, but I've written about it extensively because the concepts, once you hear them, they click in this way that, you know, you start seeing the world through that light, and you can never go back to seeing it the old way. And, you know, you can kind of, I have in my mind the mental models from James Clear, the sort of, incremental change, stacking habits. So you go from one to another, replacing a previous pattern or behavior with some kind of a new behavior. And I'm realizing that one of the reasons that it clicked is because it's sort of a rehash of a lot of the older literature that's been out there in cognitive behavioral therapy. And you use that term on your website. I've been a big fan of that for a long time because I had some issues with intrusive thoughts, negative thoughts, things that would come about. And talk about CBT a little bit for those who might not be familiar with that term.
Yeah. I love it. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, says what we think affects our behavior. Now, our behavior can be things like how we react, like outwardly, how we react inwardly, so our actions and our feelings, right? That's the behavior that we have. And so CBT says the solution to almost any problem is to identify the thought that's causing you to feel and take actions that's getting you results that you don't want. So I have my master's in education. I took a couple classes that dabbled in it, but it was when I was in that middle school discipline office, I decided to go get certified. I became a certified life coach through the life coach school with Brooke Castillo, and she teaches what she calls the model, which is just her version of the cognitive behavioral therapy. And that was like way more rigorous and just as expensive as my master's program. But I learned so much. And the biggest thing I learned was my way of thinking my whole life was right. Because when I was a kid, I would, I was bullied in middle school. Kids called me Moonhead because the shape of my head, and I have a pointy chin and a large head. So they call me Moonhead because of the McDonald's commercial with the guy with here, I'll show you him. I keep him here because I show this to teens when I coach them. But do you remember this commercial with Mac Tonight?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Those listening, go Google Mac Tonight McDonald's, right? And so they saw a similarity and they said, he's Moonhead. So I like that made me sick whenever I'd see them for weeks. They'd be bullying me. And I really, I was shaken. My confidence was shaken. And then one day I had just decided, I go into the full story in the program, but one day I just decided, you know what? Yeah, I do have a big head and I'm still freaking awesome. And I thought I was just cheating the system. I thought, well, I'm supposed to think I have a big head, I'm a weirdo, and nobody's ever going to like me. But you know what? I'm just going to cheat. And I'm just going to say instead that I'm really awesome. And that worked. And I thought I was faking it till I was making it kind of a deal. But what I was doing is I was just coaching myself. I was rewriting my unhelpful thoughts that were not getting me the results that I wanted. And I was able to do that, and teens are able to do this, but they don't know they can. A, they don't know they can, and B, they're not aware of the difference between the facts around them and their stories or their thoughts about those facts. They would think that, well, I'm weird looking and nobody's going to like me is just a fact. Kids throw around the word fact all the time. Oh yeah, hashtag facts. And in zero situations is it actually a fact what they're talking about, right? It's just an opinion that they really love. So they go facts, and they don't know how to separate their opinions of themselves, other people's opinions of themselves, separate that into a different category and go, this is rewritable. I can rewrite the way I think about myself. And that's a skill that should be taught to every single adolescent. Every single teen should know how to do that if they want to be successful, because the 3 R's are great, right? Reading, writing, arithmetic, that's great. But if you don't have the skills to build self-confidence, to push forward after failure, then you won't be able to use your great book smarts when you're out there in the real world, because you'll just be stopping yourself with all these unhelpful sidekick thoughts, which is what I call them.
That's awesome. The hidden curriculum I mentioned earlier is a term that we've been throwing around for the sort of, the practical real world skills, but you break it down into the 4 arenas, and it just clicked that the acronym headspace, emotions, relationships, objectives add up to hero. And the name sort of, says it all, sidekick to hero, but people might know, the hero's journey. How do you conceive of that progression from, I'm going to impute, or what you're saying there is that, we can consider ourselves sort of a sidekick in life, or we can be kind of the main character of our story. We can, or something to that effect. And that's another one of these kind of reframes. Correct me where I might be getting off base or getting ahead of myself, and then talk through some of these 4 arenas and what each one represents as a skill set.
Yeah, of course. Like sidekick to hero is my way of teaching CBT and other self-development to teens, because they kind of get that concept. So I love Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. I teach that to the teens, and I say the hero is the person in the story who rises up to change the ending. Nobody else in the story does. It's the hero that does it. Harry Potter rises up, right, to change the end of the story. Luke Skywalker rises up, right, to change the end of the story. Katniss Everdeen rises up to change the end of the story. The sidekick doesn't. Now, the sidekick is on the hero's team, and this is a very important distinction. It's not victim. I'm not talking about villains. I'm not talking about any of that. Like, you have to recognize your teen is acting like a sidekick, because a sidekick has the goals of the hero. All right. The victim often does it, an NPC, the non-playable character. There's just a person walking down the street in the movie and in Jurassic Park, and a dinosaur eats them, right? We know nothing about them. They don't have the same goals as the hero does, but the sidekick does. And that's how I felt when I was a teen. I felt like I had all these goals and these things that I wanted. I wanted to do all these awesome things, but I had a stutter. I looked weird. I had pasty white skin, so I was called Casper, but I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be the center of attention, and I wanted to be known in that way for being funny. But I felt people were laughing at me in a bad way. And so I was like, man, this is just, I want that, but I can't get it. And when you give up and go, oh, well, I'll never be able to get that, that's sidekick mode. That's when you're thinking like a sidekick. Now, it's not bad to think like a sidekick. We all think like a sidekick. I was thinking like a sidekick earlier today, right? It's something that we have to be aware of. And I teach teens how to catch themselves when they're thinking like a sidekick and go, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to be thinking this way. Let me kick myself into hero mode and think like a hero. And when you think like a hero, you're going to get hero results. And a hero result is the result that you want. And so that's my approach when I pitch it to teens. That's the whole framing, right? The scaffolding that everything I teach kind of lives in. When the teens sign up for Sidekick to Hero, the first thing they do is they come up with a hero name. There's onboarding videos. They have to come up with this hero name that they can identify with. It's their name, the blank. So I'm Joey the creator. And whenever I want to motivate myself or get out of a slump, I go, you know what? What would Joey the creator think right now? And I can instantly channel a new mindset and get to work on doing the things that I need to do. So first off, is that clear before I move on to the arenas?
I was just going to ask you what your creator name was, but you beat me to the punch. So continue with those 4 arenas.
Yes. So in Sidekick to Hero, I realized after coaching teens for 5 years, I was like, you know what? I say a lot of the same things over and over and over again. Every teen problem fits into 4 categories. And I call these the hero arenas. And it's headspace, is what they're thinking, emotions, how they're dealing with their feelings, relationships, which is how they're dealing with other people, and objectives, which is how they're dealing with their goals. That's the procrastination one, right? In Sidekick to Hero, the videos are separated into these hero arenas. I try not to use any educational terms in Sidekick to Hero. I don't use courses. I don't use lessons. I say play through the 4 hero arenas in any order you want to. Each arena has a bunch of stages for you to complete. Like Mario, back in the day, Super Mario, you had the stages, stage 1, whatever, and you would complete that. And each video in the stage, right, what we would call the lesson, but don't tell the teens that, but each lesson has a challenge that is extended to them, kind of like a quest for them to go complete in the real world. Because Sidekick to Hero is a game, but they don't play it in Sidekick to Hero. They play it in the real world. And when they go out into the real world and they start 3 new conversations, or they start the habit of making their bed, or they get mad at their brother and sister, but don't yell at them, right? Whatever their challenge is, then they can come back to the game and claim those coins and points that go with it, and then do a little self-reflection in the app. And it kind of keeps that for them as a journal, because I think that's important, that kind of self-reflection. And so they get to pick. Some teens come in and they'll just start with just the objectives arena, and they'll just want to double down on that because they want to learn about being an entrepreneur, or they want to learn about, stopping procrastination and things like that. Others will spend a lot of time in the emotions. And so it's really like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah. So you're speaking about the sort of gamification element, which I find really interesting, and I want to use that as a lever to play with this idea a little bit of, we hear a lot about the balance between screens and the real world, and it's usually framed as sort of an either or. And everybody knows kids spend too much time on screens. Everyone knows that adults spend too much time on our cell phones. We all know it's a problem. We all want to do better, and we don't really know how to do it. I think the one answer could be, this is where I want to get your opinion. Are there ways that we can, again, reframe what we're doing on the computer to be oriented towards getting us out in the real world? Because it sounds like that's what your experience is doing. You're creating the real world quest, and the computer is a tool. It's a means to the end. I actually have a sticker that I keep on my monitor that says, finish your work and go outside. Because it's just, I need that reminder. Otherwise, I'll forget that, the virtual world, here we're talking, but this is sort of meant to be a bridge to get people to think differently about their life. And life is still lived in the real world. I want to ask, being in touch with all these teenagers who are really in the thick of it, what's the state of the union on teens and screens? And how do you conceive of that problem?
Oh, yeah. Teens know it, man. Just like you said, we all know it for ourselves. Teens know it. They know they spend too much time on screens. They get it. And deep down, they know it's stopping them from reaching their real life goals. Because the way I pitch it to my teens I'm like, guys, if you play Fortnite for 4 hours, right, you get to level 95, yes. When you turn it off, you look around in your real life, and there's been no change, no improvement. It doesn't transfer over, and your real life is not improving. Guys, get that concept. That's nuts. That's nuts that we spend so much time trying to up-level a fictional character in a fake world, and then we turn it off, and we're experiencing all this kind of like depression and lethargy and all this stuff. It's not a surprise that we do that, and I get it. Like, I love video games, but there's a time and a place for it, and I love the word you used. You said technology is a tool. I did this reel. It was one of my favorite reels I've done, right, for my Instagram account, where I have a hammer and I'm going through regular life and I'm hammering. So I'm brushing my teeth and I'm hammering. I'm trying to sleep and I'm just hammering. But I can't sleep because I'm hammering. I'm eating cereal. It's going everywhere because I'm hammering. And I'm like, a phone is a tool to use, and it would be silly of us to use a tool all the time. But phones are designed to do that, and we've created this false narrative that, oh, if I don't have it, if I'm not on there, if I'm not doing, then I'm not keeping up with the Joneses or my friends. I'm going to miss out on things. But technology is a tool to help us live our life better. And a video game is totally a tool, and it has its place. But I teach teens the concept of more and before. So I want you to live your own life more and before you live somebody else's life in a video game or on YouTube or something like that. So you spend more time, whether it's homework or goals, working out, starting a business, whatever it is, interacting with family, more time before you turn on Minecraft and log in an hour. Right? So, because most often it's viewed the other way around. Let me just get my stuff done real fast so I can get my 4 hours of video games in a day. But I'm like, no, spend more time living your own life before you kind of relax. Use that tool to relax at the end of a hard day's work.
Right. And you make the point that, you don't need a smartphone for this. You can actually get the whole program for less than the cost of a cell phone subscription. I think it's $200 a year or $20 a month, which I'll mention,
the price just went up at the beginning of September. So it's $25 a month now, or $250 a year.
Well, hey, it's perfect fit for any OpenEd families that are looking for something to slot into a custom built period. It would be right in line with that. And what I love about this, if you are a parent and you're wondering what's the right balance between, I'm already doing Khan Academy for math, so my kid's already on the computer for that. They're watching, if you've got a virtual curriculum in all these areas, you might be thinking, do I want to add in another virtual program? But I think you've answered that. The curriculum and you don't use that term, but you use the quests take you out of the computer with some structure, with some frameworks to try things in the real world. So it's a real support for anyone. We use these buzzwords like self-directed learning, but it's not a guarantee that a kid left to their own devices is going to pick a quest and commit to it. they could just, twiddle their thumbs. And granted, when I was a kid, there was a lot of wasted time. I like to think that maybe some of those video games gave me something, but I think that that's a pretty elaborate rationalization. Tony Hawk Pro Skater gave me that feeling of being the hero, but without, I actually had an epiphany. It was my freshman year of college, and I brought my N64 or whatever the console was to my dorm. And my first semester, I played copious video games, was just streaming TV shows, and I felt emptier than I'd ever felt in my entire life. My grades were mediocre. My social life was okay, but it was just, I could feel life sort of slipping between my fingertips. This is relatable for a lot of young people today. I had the mental health crisis, and it wasn't until I found that there was a life to live out there, and I needed to level up. And then I found CBT and some of these other tools. I'm curious, have you followed any of the discussion around Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation?
Ooh, no. I've heard of that. I've read one of his other books. I actually forget the name of it right now, but give me the pamphlet version.
Sure, right. That's really, I was listening to the audiobook on a drive recently, but I would sum it up as he ushers the data showing the sharp increase in mental health issues, including, tragically suicides, when you have the advent of not just smartphones, but specifically in 2012, you had the advent of the front-facing camera and all of these social media platforms where people are suddenly comparing themselves to other people. And it's different problems by and large for boys and girls, but it's the same thing where you do see a very sudden spike. And so he points to all the things embedded in our use of technology that lead to more anxiety. And it's kind of a depressing message. And, he doesn't claim to have a silver bullet. He recommends certain things like rituals that we could bring back as a society where, the societal expectation is that you don't get your first cell phone until you're 16, and enforce those things, not through the law, but just through culture and kind of convention. But I think that it's really up to, parents and really ultimately young people themselves to make that decision to break from the pack and take ownership over your life.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Like, I would love it if all parents followed that counsel. No cell phone till they're 16, no smartphone till they're 18. Right? Like, that's what me and my wife are probably going to do, something along those lines. But I'm hoping to inspire the teens and the tweens to go, you know what? Like, I don't even want to dabble in that, because I recognize that it's built to latch onto my brain so other people can make money. And when I pitch it to teens that way, I'm like, look, YouTube, Minecraft, like TikTok, they're playing you for a fool, dude. They created their product in such a way to hook you specifically, so you waste your life while they make money off of your attention. And I'm like, that's, yeah, it's fun, but that's all it is for you. And not for long. As you said, like when you were doing the copious amounts of all of that, it's not fun for long. So for me, like, my program is virtual because it's the only way to really do a program like this and scale it and get it out there to all the teens. But that's why I created really short videos. Like, it's designed like in a way where a teen can log in on Monday, watch a 4-minute video, right, in one of the stages that they're on. And it says, the challenge might be, all right, take the next day or two to think about this or do this, and then come back and report. And then on Wednesday, they can come back and they can do a little report, and they can jump over and listen to my podcast episode that I put up on there, and they get points for that too in the game, and like, if they're coming in, they're just checking in. It's not meant for binging. It's meant for small consumption and then go out and do, because when they're doing, that's when they're learning.
All right. Now, I didn't prep you on this, but I know that you are an improv actor. And so I'm thinking we're going to try a little improv game here.
All right.
The game is called One Sentence Summaries. And I've got the list of books that you teach, but I'm going to put you on the spot and have you give us, I'm going to say a title of a book. And in as few words as possible, you're going to try to sum up the pamphlet version of that book. Okay?
Okay. All right. Oh, this is going to be fun.
Let's go. Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset.
You do not have to stay stuck.
Beautiful. Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game.
That's redundant. Hold on, give me a second. Play like the game never ends.
All right, here's a tough one. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Anti-Fragile.
Love this book.
You can't just use the subtitle.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to. Okay. When you break, you get stronger.
Love it. Love it. One more. Let's do two more. Napoleon Hill, Own Your Own Mind.
Don't let your thoughts control you. You control them.
And the last one is going to be a crowd pleaser. Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover.
Stop spending money.
Okay, perfect.
There you go. That's it.
Awesome. Wow. Well, man, we've covered a lot of ground. It's hard to believe this has only been 30 minutes. It feels like we've done a whole semester's worth of material. Just to kind of start to wrap things up, I do want to give some sort of practical, for someone that's considering this, your website. I think people can go to either joeymascio.com or what's the best place for them to go to learn more about this?
Yeah,
program.
sidekicktohero.com or joeymascio.com. Both will have the links to learn more about it and start a 2-week free trial.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that our families are aware of the opportunity here. Joey, any closing thoughts or words of wisdom? You working on a book of your own or? Like
yes, one day that will be coming. Teens, if you were listening to this, or parents, you can tell your teens this. They can do so much more than they're currently doing. They just have to change their mind about themselves so they can change their story.
Change your mind, change your story. Joey Mascio, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you very much, Charlie.